Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 99 of the Alabama Liberal Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about algorithm inequality, the Nepocracy, digital pyramids, and the new Pharaohs. Now, right there in the title, you heard that this is episode 99. So I'm getting really close to the centennial episode, and I feel like I should do something special. So, of course, next month I will be interviewing Joe Biden. President Joe Biden will be my interview guest because he was looking around for a millennial that didn't hate him. And so I'm the only one he could find. So I wish that I could get an interview with him because I do think I could sell him and his accomplishments better to the American people than he or his team have done, and especially some of the other Democratic members who are kind of hiding and acting like they barely know him. And he's been an incredibly successful president. I think Bill Clinton was a good president. I think Barack Obama was a good president. I think Joe Biden is as good as they have been, perhaps even better. All we ever see are Democratic successes, LBJ, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, be massaged into failures because of the slant of the media and a lot of things that they refuse to talk about and refuse to cover. We're going to talk about some very scary things. It's kind of a duology of episode 98. Episode 98 was my favorite episode I've done in at least a year. And so naturally, I received more criticism than I've ever received for an episode from different people. The right-wing people that, of course, hate me. They've hated Alabama liberals since its inception. They've always targeted me and gone after different things because they don't want there to be anybody kind of speaking, I would almost say, common sense and saying this is the liberal perspective, and every single thing that the middle class has ever gotten is from the Democratic Party and liberalism and progressivism. They want liberalism and progressivism portrayed as to the left of Chairman Mao or whatever, and most of them are not. Fox News, they cover over and over the same 4 or 5 wacky liberals, forgetting that the majority of the Republican Party is crazy, whereas a very, very small minority of people on the left are crazy. A couple of specific things people had issues with the last episode. It was specifically about Warren Buffett and Elon Musk, and luckily this episode builds on that. And I can explain exactly why I don't like Warren Buffett. Maybe I didn't make that as clear as I could have. And Elon Musk, why I don't think he's the business genius he's been made out to be. I've covered that at length, so I might just briefly touch on it. But before we really even get into the meat of the podcast, there's just no way around not talking about Trump. Funny thing is, all the people that love him feel like, oh, you liberals, you're so obsessed with him. Whatever way you do when he finally goes away, well, let's have him go away and then we'll find out. Like, I'm one of those people where I would be fine never talking about him again. I know he's been around since the very first episode, January 2016. It was around the Iowa caucus. Me and my co-host Michael doing it at the time. If you asked either one of us, do you think that this asshole will still be a factor 8 years and I guess you'd say 3 presidential elections later? I would say not on your life. There's no way I thought him as a novelty clown. I really thought the bad guy of the first season was going to be Ted Cruz, and it wound up being Trump, but I didn't really think he would be the recurring villain of the entire podcast. This is now 3 different seasons, 3 distinct seasons, getting close to 100 episodes. Never in my wildest nightmares did I think he would be the Darth Vader of the Alabama Liberal Podcast, really the Emperor Palpatine of the Alabama Liberal Podcast. There's even been some people that are more like Darth Vader in that they might have started out on his page and they've slowly turned against him. You know, like anybody who's ever met him. Anybody who's ever met this sack of shit ever can't stand him and doesn't want to be around him and thinks he's a con artist. You hear all the time people say, he screwed me, he ripped me off, he cheated me, he was supposed to pay this, he didn't. I've never seen a president where everybody who's ever met them hates them, and yet his fans keep shoving him in our face again and again. You would think January 6, 2021, we would have never even had to worry about him being the nominee. After that happened, January 7th, he should have been on a one-way flight to Guantanamo Bay. I mean, he really should have been sent to Supermax prison, probably in the middle of some Caribbean island, probably some CIA black site we don't even know about, and that really should have been where he lived out his days. It should have been like Napoleon on Elba, exiled and we never see him again, or even let him defect to Siberia if that's what he wants to do, and he can go be Putin's problem. And he wanted to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. I say let him build it and let him go live there, but never would I have ever assumed January the 6th, 2021, which was scary as shit, darkest moment in American democracy, not even during the Civil War period did James Buchanan consider not letting Abraham Lincoln take office. We've literally never had that happen before, where a president's like, you know, I might have lost the election, but you know what? I think I'm just going to stay here. I'm kind of comfortable. I got all my shit set up in the White House. All my favorite towels are here. I know the cook's name. He likes my preferences. He knows how I like my hamburgers. Well done and burnt, same as my steaks. Loads of ketchup on the side. And this is a good setup for me. I'm just not leaving. You almost didn't think that it could happen. And so to inspire a mob to go into the Capitol, disrupt the shit out of the certification of the vote, as though that would somehow, oh, we missed the certification. Looks like we're just going to be stuck with Trump another 4 years, as though he could get away with that, and as though it's like, well, we didn't get to certify the vote on this specific day, so we're just not going to do it ever. You know what? Finders keepers, and he's just going to stay in there, and you win some, you lose some, and then Joe Biden's like, well, I guess I'll just go to Cracker Barrel now and spend the rest of my days in the rocking chair. You would have thought that was the most insane batshit plan ever, but he wasn't arrested, ran back to Mar-a-Lago, committed more felonies, the documents, and everything else that's going on, the endless indictments, the endless trials, and then have him go back out there and start running for re-election almost immediately. He really started about 6 weeks after he left office when he started doing these rallies and everything. But insurrection, second impeachment, rallies, indictments, more indictments, trials, now on trial for the first time ever. We've had a president in a criminal trial. People are like, oh, what do you think about this first Trump trial? It's not really the first trial. This is a guy who spent half of his life in a courtroom. I almost feel like, wait, didn't we just see a trial? But of course, those were civil trials. And I mean, they're endless trials, endless confrontations with judges. You almost think there should just be a cable network of Trump on trial. And it could just be him confronting the judges, threatening the prosecutors, putting out death threats, trying to dox whoever the jurors are, hoping his fans will kill one of the jurors that disagrees with him. A joke on the one hand, but also scary. And that's kind of the thing that strikes you about Trump is it's a weird combination where he's a fucking joke. Like on the one hand, he's a total absurd character. The hair, the tan, the 3 wives, all the wives that hate him. His wife hates his guts and doesn't want to be around him. Andy Burowitz had a hilarious article. It says, woman disqualified from jury duty after strong negative opinion towards Trump. And it was a picture of Melania Trump. All these comical things about him. And then on the other hand, for him to be so scary, him to be both an idiot and a joke and terrifying, where he's talking about purging the blood of the country and all the revenge he's going to get on the liberals once he gets back in there. And this is his campaign platform, by the way. People are like, oh, him and Biden, they're in a dead heat in these swing states. Trump's campaign platform is vote for me so I can get revenge on my enemies, and or vote for me so I can pardon myself. What the fuck are people responding to? You have to be as crazy as he is to support him at this point. I don't know what it says about you to support this man at this point. For me, it's not even him. It's his fans. It's the people supporting him. What the fuck are you voting for? This is the worst candidate I've ever seen. I think it's the worst presidential candidate in at least the last 50 years. Probably really since the Civil War days. I mean, Jefferson Davis never really ran for president, but this is about the equivalent of that. What are people voting for when they're saying that they want him back in office? For what? That horrible 2020 year? You want that back? That Mad Max on fucking steroids? I mean, the country went from the Obama years to a goddamn dystopia in 2020. You know, I don't want to make this the theme of every single podcast where I'm literally sitting here being like, how crazy are people to vote for this guy? I mean, that could almost be like every episode is just titles. How crazy are Trump fans? Part 1. How crazy are they? Part 2. And I could just keep it going between now and November and really beyond that, because I'm sure the second he loses in November, they're going to be like, Trump 2028, Trump 2032. I've never seen this where this guy that is repulsive constantly being shoved in our faces. So when his fans say, you guys are so obsessed with him and you can't move on, quit nominating this guy. We would love to move on. I mean, you don't think I'd rather do episodes tearing Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis apart? At least it would be fresh. They talk out of both sides of their mouth where they're like, oh, you guys, you got Trump derangement syndrome. Well, you got Trump obsession syndrome. I would point out that a lot of the criticisms of Biden's age are a dog whistle towards Kamala Harris, where they're trying to scare you about Kamala Harris. Because when they keep saying things like, Biden's old, like, okay, yeah, he's old. He is old. I'll give you that. But so what? Why is that such a big problem? I'm not worried that Joe Biden won't live through his second term. I'm worried Donald Trump will live through his second term. With Joe Biden, if the biggest concern is that he passes away, why is it that big a problem to let Kamala Harris continue this job? The vice president's only real job is to break ties in the Senate. She has now broken more ties in the Senate than any other VP in American history, where the Senate is so divided that she's had to break a record number of ties, and she's done it better than any VP in American history. Not that you've seen any mention of this. Most people don't even know that. I said, did you know she's broken more ties in the Senate than any VP? No, that can't be right. Well, it is right. And the only female VP ever has now broken a record. She's now done more than any vice president before her. Yeah, but it's It's different when you take over the job for real. Well, Joe Biden had a colonoscopy. She was the president de facto for a few hours. The earth didn't crash into the sun. There wasn't a giant tide that swept America away. Nothing happened. You didn't even know about it. So she's quietly doing the job without people even really noticing. And of course, it's a hysterical racist backlash and sexist backlash that if a woman becomes president, 5 minutes after that, she will have a hysterical menstrual fit and then launch all the nuclear weapons into every allied country that we've ever had. No, Trump might actually do that. He's gone through menopause and he's the one having these temperamental shit fits all the time. Kamala's put up with as much bullshit as Hillary Clinton, and she's done it with charm. She's very level-headed and capable of being able to do anything Joe Biden's able to do. So I'm not that worried about his age. She'll do a great job. She'll continue what he's been doing. You will still have a cabinet of capable, scandal-free professionals doing their damn job. Think about all the people Trump burned through in his first term. I mean, it was like 3 different EPA directors, 3 different attorney generals, acting secretary of defense because he burned through so many. And he had a whole fucking cabinet rotate out from under him at about the same point in his presidency. Joe Biden's cabinet, you can't find anything where they've done anything wrong, or you would have heard about it. Trust me, if Pete Buttigieg had spent $5 of DOT money to buy himself a hamburger, you would have heard all about it and they would have investigated it. So Biden has a capable, scandal-free cabinet of professionals quietly going about the job of actually running the damn country, and they're doing a great job. Primarily, I want to draw attention to Lena Khan, FTC commissioner, who has done a great job of blocking some of these mega mergers. Bernie Sanders apparently has a YouTube channel. I didn't know this, but I was just stumbling across YouTube, which is all about algorithm inequality, as we'll get to in just a second. And one thing I stumbled across was he had an interview with her where they were talking about pharmaceutical companies and how they use bogus patents to block competition and something called the Orange Book, which I was not familiar with at all before I watched that video. And so his team is actually more economically liberal than either Bill Clinton or Barack Obama. And yet you never seem to get credit for this. They blocked the Albertsons and Kroger merger, which is great, and they should have. They blocked the JetBlue and Spirit Airlines merger, which is great, and they should have, because you would have had a horrible airline with Spirit spreading their cancerous customer service policies to another airline. Last episode, when I talked about customer abuse, more examples of this spring up in my life every single day, and Spirit Airlines is a perfect example. I flew a Spirit Airlines flight, and I felt like they might as well call it Fuck You Airlines. They might as well take the goddamn seats out of the airplane and just have straps like a subway, like subway poles and straps where you're standing up the whole flight. I mean, they're going to start selling seats in the damn bathroom, but with no toilet or whatever, where it's just like a stand-up cubicle, because they treat you with such contempt. They wouldn't give us a cup of water. You had to buy your own water. The seats have been stripped down to the studs. It was like a leather strap on a fucking screw is what the seats felt like. There was no padding, no TVs. And the problem is Spirit has been successful enough. The other airlines that did treat people with a modicum of respect, they're now going to copy this because they think they can get away with it. Oh, a carry-on bag? Spirit doesn't let you have a single carry-on bag for free? That's interesting. There's a lot of different upcharges and nickel and dime bullshit kind of things that all used to be free. When you listen to people talk about flying back in the 50s and 60s, I'm jealous. Get on the flight, they'd say, oh, let me take your coat and tie, sir, or whatever. There'd be a full meal, a real meal. Never would have even thought about charging you for a cup of water. I mean, alcohol was practically free, let alone water, right? The idea that customers can be treated so horribly by airlines, they make you go through the bone scanner machine, which I think causes cancer, treat you like a terrorist everywhere you go. And I'm one of those millennials who's just old enough to remember flying before 9/11 and after. Shampoo was fine, toothpaste was fine. You didn't have to take your shoes off. There wasn't a high-density bone scanner as though you're smuggling dynamite up your asshole or whatever they think is happening. I'm not sure why we're being subjected to this cancerous machine. It was fine. You weren't treated like a goddamn criminal every time you get on an airplane. And now, instead of just saying, well, you're going to go through a metal detector and you can't bring box cutters on the plane, it's ridiculous. All the different airline procedures, and it's been like this for over 20 years. I don't think it's ever going to go back to how it was, but they've swabbed my hands for chemicals. They've had dogs come up and sniff you every which way. If you ever say, no, I don't want to do the bone density scanner, they do a manual search. They may be somewhat nice about it for little old ladies, but for a grown man, they are not nice about it. I mean, it's practically a proctology exam, and they make you wait and they hold you up, and it's an extra 30 minutes. If you're anywhere close to your flight, you're going to miss it probably. So they really punish you for making them get off their ass and do that, the TSA people. That's just one industry that's been cannibalized by horrible customer service. The last 5 times I've flown, I've just had a carry-on bag. It is not past the weight limit. It's not that big, and they still take it from from me. Oh, we'll give it back to you in your final destination. I'd kind of like to have my bag. I'd kind of like to put it up in the overhead bin. No, you don't have a choice. And they just steal it from you and you don't have it. You may have a layover. There may be a connecting flight and you're just wondering, is it going to be at the carousel? Plus, when I get off the plane, I'd like to just immediately go home or go to my destination. Instead, I have to wait 30 fucking minutes at a carousel for a carry-on bag to come down that should have never been forcibly carried on. And it's all because I'm one of the last zones, which is a slightly cheaper flight because I didn't want to spend $50 to upgrade and be treated like a person. But when I get on the flight, there's a lot of empty overhead bins. There's a lot of different places my bag could have gone, and they just sort of do this to be dicks to force you to upgrade. It's just sort of about punishing you for not wanting to upgrade. Same thing with the tipping culture. Everywhere I go, I'm asked to give a tip. Cup of coffee, how about a tip? A donut, how about a tip? Ice cream. You go to a place that scoops ice cream, they scooped 2 ice cream scoops into a cone, and there's a tip jar out. If you don't tip, they really look like they're mad at you, and they don't really give you very good service. You go through the Starbucks line and you don't put something in the tip jar, you don't sign away for a tip. You have to now ask them for straws, ask them for napkins. They look like it just about kills them. They say thank you, slam the door. You might be sitting there waiting for a napkin or two, but they never come back out. It's just one of those little contemptuous things, and you think, you want a tip scooping ice cream? I mean, isn't that your job? I tell you what, how about self-serve ice cream scoops? I'll scoop 2 ice cream cups into a waffle cone and maybe it won't cost $10 plus a tip. Conversely, Costco now has the charm of shopping at a goddamn maximum security prison. You go into a Costco and you want to shop, there's self-checkout lines everywhere, and there's just as many cashiers standing there watching you at the self-checkout line as there would be if they just opened more registers. There's like 8 self-checkout lines, and there's like 4 people standing there, standing over your shoulder watching you, making sure you scan every little thing, even though you're going to walk out the door, and they're still going to check your receipt and see everything that you've got there. I don't even know how you could shoplift at Costco because of all these redundant security measures. It's about treating you like you're a criminal. You go into this place that's built like an airport hangar. Really, you're not any cheaper. You're buying in bulk thinking like, oh, this saves me some time because I bought 4 lasagnas at one time. It's $100. It would have been just as cheap to buy them one at a time at a different grocery store, maybe even cheaper. So you're not really saving what you think. Then you go through a self-checkout line where some guy's standing over your shoulder barking and saying all this crazy shit. And you're like, if I wanted to talk to a person, I just would have went through the regular line. I don't even know what your purpose is right now. You ask him, can you help me get a box? No, we're out of boxes. You're not out of boxes. There's a box right over there. Well, I guess you better go get it then, asshole. So you got to go get your own box, bring it over there. Then you leave. Somebody looks at your receipt, checks your stuff, implicitly saying you could be stealing something, looks you up and down. And now the food courts have gone into an all automated system. You don't even really have a choice anymore. So if you want to buy something at the Costco food court, in LA anyway, and it may be this way nationwide, I'm not sure, they've now put these self-service kiosks around, which is just another example of contempt they're showing the customers. First, they got rid of the combo pizza, which had sausage and peppers and mushrooms and everything on it, and that was great, but they cut the combo pizza out, just go to pepperoni and cheese. Said somehow that was saving them on labor costs because they could go from having 6 people to 5 people or whatever it was. Now they've cut out the cashiers practically, where you go to the kiosk, you have to put in what you want and ring yourself up. Automated checkout lines were going to be a price break because they saved you on labor costs. That has not been passed on to the consumer. So like in California, where they just passed a new law saying fast food employees must make a livable wage, and they've bumped up the wages. That's great for the fast food employees, but a lot of the companies are now saying, well, we're going to automate a lot of these jobs, and they're not going to pass the savings on to us. Fast food is now a record high price. I mentioned several examples in 98 where it was like, I can't believe how much the fast food has gone up. Automation and sky-high prices is not being passed on to the consumer. It's been passed back into the company. With Costco, it's the same thing, where now I'm ringing myself up, both in the store and at the food court kiosk. I go up there, I show them a receipt. I don't know how much they're really saving in labor costs, but it's a much worse experience. And these are the kind of examples that are seen everywhere. But if you ever bring this up online or talk about, man, customer service really sucks, you usually get crawled out where people, you don't know what we deal with. You don't know what kind of pressure we're under. You don't understand how bad it is. You don't understand how bad people have gotten. There's always been difficult customers, and I'm sure COVID has made that worse. I'm sure a lot of people have no home training. They really don't know how to be out in public. And people have gotten iller and more impatient. But there have always been difficult customers. We had them in Alabama when I would work all these crappy jobs, and people would come into an Applebee's practically looking for a fight. I'd be a waiter at Applebee's, and they'd get drunk, they'd smoke, they'd leave me 5 cents for a tip off a $100 bill from alcohol and whatever food they ate. I mean, it was usually like $10 of food and $90 in alcohol, because it was one of the only wet restaurants in the county, one of the only places you could sit down and get a drink. And they were assholes. They were totally belligerent. Same thing at Walmart as a cashier. I don't think people have gotten worse worse. And what I'm seeing more and more of is like with airlines, people get on the plane, they're quiet, they're respectful, they ask the flight attendant for something. I mean, they kind of look at them like they're crazy for even asking about it. The flight attendants are kind of rude a lot of times. They go around like they're air marshals and barking, "Oh my God, your shoelaces are over the line. Can you please take your shoelaces into your shoe and put that back there," or whatever. I mean, they're really kind of barking orders. And then their actual job, which is to attend to you, you'll be like, "Well, can I get a cup of water?" "Yeah, I'll get to that if I have time on a 6-hour flight." Asshole thinks I'm a miracle worker. I don't know what his problem is. And we're really seeing more and more contempt towards customers. I don't know that they've gotten so much worse as the people who now have these jobs resent that they have these jobs. You have to think in an economy where even a good wage for fast food, now fast food in LA, some places are paying over $20 an hour. But the flip side of that economy is there's now billionaires can make $2 billion in a single day. I gave the example last episode about Mark Zuckerberg making $28 billion in a week or a day or whatever it was. When you live in that kind of economy where every single time you turn on the TV, you see mostly rich people, and a lot of Hollywood is nepo-babies that have never worked and they've stumbled ass backwards into a great job, yeah, you probably don't want to work at Chipotle anymore or Burger King, and I kind of don't blame people for having a sour attitude while they're working there. You only get one life as far as I know. And I think the key to having this low-wage, crappy jobs used to be that people were very religious and they believed in heaven. And so if you believed in an afterlife, it was like, okay, well, I know my job as a housemaid is absolutely horrible and I'm being paid 5 cents in room and board, but at least when I die, I'll go to heaven and I'll never have to work again. Now, most people don't really believe that that's true. I know I don't. I don't think it's true. And so if you think you've only got one life, you probably don't want to waste it at a Starbucks working for people that you really don't like. You're not aligned with what the customer is. And I gave the example last episode about dating sites and how the business itself is different from what the customer needs. Well, the employees of these places are different. Like at Papa John's, you get paid an hourly wage whether you have 10 customers come in or 1 customer come in. So you're not really incentivized to be nice to people, because the nicer you are, people say, "Oh, he's so nice. I should come back to that Papa John's. He's such a nice guy. He hooked me up. It was such a great experience." But that's more work for them. And there are some people who they want to be busy and they want to be stressed out and they want to sweat the whole time they're working. But a lot of people don't. And I didn't want to either. So when you come in there, you're adding more work to them and they don't really have an incentive to be friendly to you. They'd rather have the one customer every hour or so just to kind of keep the place open. But in terms of a very busy Burger King, they're going to treat you with contempt, because they're really tired of working their butt off for a pay that never shifts or never goes up at all. There's really no difference to them. So who do they want to be? If they don't want to be there, who would they like to be? And of course, the answer is the people that we shit on all the time. Anybody right now would trade places with anybody in the media or a rich and wealthy billionaire. I mean, I mentioned Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos almost every single episode, but these master of the universe types, because we know who they are and we see them a lot more. There used to be a lot of distance between the richest of the rich. People didn't really think they could be John Rockefeller. They didn't think they could be a Vanderbilt. You know, it was almost like, oh, these mysterious people off to the side, maybe they're part of the Illuminati or they're controlling the universe, but we don't see them. Now I think the elite are much more visible, and we're recognizing that they had lucky breaks that anybody who was born in the right circumstances could have had. There's no special ability that a businessman like Elon Musk has that you wouldn't have. And we know this because most people who've worked for him and his biggest breaks, he's a wallet. He's not some genius like we've made him out to be. He's a wallet. His dad owned an emerald mine in South Africa, bought his way into America. Elon's able to immigrate here, go to school here, get a job here, do all the good stuff here off of daddy's money, even though he denies this. He says that it had nothing to do with it. Well, his mother was Mae Musk, a supermodel, and his dad was a businessman in South Africa. I do think it had something to do with it. And then he's able to bankroll his first venture. He's able to use that money from his first venture to buy his way into PayPal. Once he's into PayPal, he was CEO for just a little bit of time before he got fired. They eventually fired him pretty quick from PayPal, but he used the buyout from PayPal to then buy Tesla. You're seeing where if you have $1 million, you can buy your way into a company, then that gets bought out, then you've got 10 million, then you buy a separate company, and it just keeps escalating like that. But if he wasn't born rich to begin with, and he didn't have the startup money to fund his first venture, there is no Elon Musk. Elon Musk might become a school superintendent, and that's even better than what he might have become. He might have been a bus driver. We don't know, but there's got to be that early early buy-in of being born rich and having a dad who can fund your first venture so you can get into that elite stratosphere. Most people who don't have that can't do that. Trump is another great example. If he doesn't have $400 million in a business he inherits from his dad, that guy's a fucking alcoholic. He's sitting in an Applebee's somewhere getting drunk, berating Alabama liberal as his waiter. He's not ever going to become the president of the United States. People talk about what a hard worker and genius businessman. Well, you don't have to be a genius when your dad builds a real estate empire. He lets you inherit it and run it, gives you $400 million in cash, and then most of the money he made, other people created for him. He wrote this book, Art of the Deal. He didn't write it. He had a ghostwriter write it. He just fucking talked, and some guy who's about like me, a real writer, would have combined all his ramblings into a book and then got that book out there, and it convinces everybody he's a genius businessman. Only 3 or 4 years after that book came out, he starts bankrupting on all these casinos. He bankrupts on 3 separate casinos in about a 2-year period. That's not a genius businessman, but he's convinced other people that he is the elite businessman. He's the guy that you want to work for. Between the Art of the Deal coming out, he bankrupts on casinos. He gets multiple divorces. He's known as having Caligula's sex life. He's Caligula on spring break, just screwing everything that moves. He's a terrible businessman, but he's able to convince Mark Burnett, who then does all the work of getting him on The Apprentice, and he's in your living rooms every Thursday night for a decade, or as the ultimate businessman. And all these people who have a better business background than he does. Most of the contestants on The Apprentice, they're real business people, but they're competing to work for him and learn under him. The guy who inherited a family business, and his closest advisors eventually become his own kids. So that's the nepocracy. These people who are actually smarter, more capable, better business people, harder workers. Oh, if only I could get a job for Trump working under this man. The grand prize for Survivor makes sense. You go starve your ass off on an island and maybe you eventually win $1 million. For The Apprentice, you work your balls off for a maniac and then maybe he hires you for a job where you can take more abuse from him. The winner of The Apprentice is actually the loser. You don't want to win that show. But the nepocracy, which has its foundation in royalty, means anybody who inherited a lot of money and privileges, we don't ever see that, and we just think, oh, they're doing something right. There's something that's so brilliant about them. Warren Buffett, the reason that I'm kind of against this guy now is because a lot of the stuff he invests in doesn't need to be invested in. Most of his investments right now are in oil companies. Occidental Petroleum and Chevron. I think he owned stock in Exxon at one point, but he's a really big backer in companies that don't need to exist. Coca-Cola is another example. Coca-Cola, largest polluter of plastic on earth. Buffett can't get enough of that stock. Chevron, huge oil company, pollutes the shit out of everything, can't get enough of that stock. Occidental Petroleum, same thing. And he's always investing in these dead businesses. He doesn't like very innovative things. He doesn't really believe in green technology or anything green. He's never really invested in any of that stuff. He's never been a huge fan of tech, except Apple, which is not necessarily the most ethical company on earth, but he's a big fan, like, oh, they're a monopoly. Yum, yum, yum. They've got a monopoly on certain things, and he's salivating at that. And this is a guy whose early start is because his dad is a Nebraska congressman, and at that time, Congress people, it was completely legal to do what would now be thought of as insider trading. Nancy Pelosi, decades later, passed this bill where Congress people are not supposed to do insider trading. I think they still do it, even the progressives. I saw where Ro Khanna, the representative from California, who everybody thinks is the new Bernie Sanders, he's the most active trader of stocks in Congress. He makes thousands of trades every year. Now you think, how can this guy who's this big progressive champion, isn't that kind of a conflict of interest to be doing these high-frequency trades like he does all the time, where he's buying and selling? You would think he would have to pick up insider information that he would then use for these trades. People still do it. Richard Burr flatly committed insider trading, and they allowed him to retire from Congress rather than enforce these new laws. Kelly Loeffler from Georgia, she just lost re-election. She ran again, and she very plainly has committed insider trading. How could she not when her husband owns the New York Stock Exchange? Back then, though, in the early days of Warren Buffett, everybody knew, and it was open and talked about, congressmen get insider tips, and all the people who wanted that secret sauce, they went to Warren and invested with him. They gave him a lot of money because they thought he would be getting intel briefings and things like that from his dad, things the regular public wasn't privy to, and he would have an edge in that way, and that was a lot of his early investments. Because of the nepotism of that, he's able to build a trading empire that gets bigger and bigger, and then he's able to buy companies like I talked about in 98, looks for businesses that are basically de facto monopolies and sort of dead industries that need to be innovated. Geico Insurance and fossil fuel companies and plastic bottlers like Kraft Foods and Coca-Cola, and pretty much anything he's ever invested in sucks. And he's not trying to innovate that at all, even though he has the fortune and he's amassed the fortune. He's in his 90s, says things like, oh, I don't want my kids to inherit my money. I'm going to give half my money away. Well, really all he's doing is putting it into these charities. This is a new tax dodge where rich people say, I'm going to give half my money away. I'm going to take the Gates pledge heritage, and all they really do is put it into charities that their family owns and controls. And so it's really just a different way to give their heirs all the money in the world, even though it looks like, oh, I'm giving it away to charity. But it's their family charity, and their kids sit on the board and they control that charity, and they'll control it till the day they die. And really, it's just a way to get out of paying the inheritance tax. So what we think of as fantastic, oh good, billionaires giving their money away, it's actually going to like regional Nebraska charities that his kids control, and they probably give $1 million to a soup kitchen and then $1 billion to their own damn art museum or whatever the fuck they want to build with it. It's really not as great as we've made it out to be, and it's another dodge. Trading wise, people say, well, Buffett's such a genius. I've beaten him in the stock market over the last several years, but I'm not starting with a great amount. You know, when you only start with $10,000 and then you're able to get a 5x return, 10x return. If you go back an episode 64 called The Recession is Here, Let's Invest. And this is an episode I did in 2020. And I told people specifically buy Apple stock, buy Microsoft stock, buy Facebook stock, buy Qualcomm stock, buy Visa stock. All 5 of those have gone up dramatically. Meta, which at the time I told buy Facebook, it'd now be called Meta, but Meta and Microsoft, those stocks have had multiple. And Qualcomm, Visa, and Apple have all gone up quite a bit. He invested in Apple, but the others were not companies that he really invested in. Anybody could beat him in the stock market, but if you're starting with $10,000 and you turn it into $50,000, that's great for you, but it's better, of course, to start with $1 billion and turn that into $5 billion, which is where you need family money and the beginning connections, which a lot of financial people have, like Bill Ackman, who inherited a fortune from his parents, or the guy who started Rourke Capital that I talked about last time, who was funded by family money, or Jeff Bezos, who borrows $500,000 from his parents to found Amazon as though it's no big thing, or Warren Buffett, who's getting a lot of ties and connections from his dad, who's a congressman. And this is where we get to the real bad part of what I'm talking about, the modern age of the new pharaohs, the new people that control the world. And I'm not talking about that in a conspiracy sense. It's not necessarily the Freemasons or the Illuminati or anything crazy like that, but there are new pharaohs. If there are new monopolies in almost every industry, 1 or 2 companies that control almost every industry in America, and I detailed those in 98, then there would be new pharaohs, people who sit at the top of those companies and they rig the entire system for their benefit and whatever they want. Trump would be one of those people. People talking about, isn't it a shame that he's being so discriminated against and the justice system so prejudiced towards him? I thought if that was anybody else, they would have been in prison years ago. The fact that he's been able to delay these trials, I would have been in jail a long time ago, you would have been in jail a long time ago, and they'd thrown away the key and never let us out. And the new pharaohs are people like him who subvert the will. His whole argument in 2016 was saying, I'm not like one of these other politicians. These people are bought and paid for, and I should know because I'm one of the people who bought and paid for them. That is insane that people thought the guy who was bragging about manipulating the swamp to his advantage was going to drain the swamp. That as a businessman, he would be completely selfish and use all these tools at his own disposal. He literally sat there with Anderson Cooper and broke it down like, oh, I would call somebody up, and if I donated to him, I could get them on the phone. And if I don't give to him, I don't get them on the phone. But if I get them on the phone, I can ask for what I want to, and they'll say, I'll look into that. And they know if they want a second check from me, they better do what I ask them to do. Basically brag about that openly. And then they would think, okay, but as president, he's going to be different. That system that allowed him to accumulate wealth and money and privilege and advantages, which is all he's ever given a shit about, he's going to tear that down once he's president. He's going to open that up to everybody else. You must be dreaming if that's what you assumed was going to happen, or that ever would happen, because not even liberals do that shit. And I'm sorry to admit that. I wish it was true that liberals, like, we get advantages and then we tear down and we do something different, but it's not. And the nepocracy, yeah, it's politics and it's business, but it's everywhere in Hollywood. Absolutely awful in Hollywood. And this is the most liberal industry in the country. People talk about, oh, Hollywood artists, they're all liberals. Well, there's one big thing that they're not liberals on, and that's nepotism. We've heard for years and years about the casting couch, the entire Me Too movement of being like, well, some sleazy executive or producer, they want to sleep with a young girl and they give them a job that way. Okay, well, that was pretty bad, but the casting couch opened it up to new people who didn't have to be born with the right parents to get cast in a job. The nepocracy is worse than that. It's not even open to anybody. You can't even be like, I'm Jennifer Lawrence and maybe I'm hot and maybe some producer gives me a job because they think they're going to sleep with me, but I don't really do it, and I trick them into it, and then I get hired and I'm really good. You can't even do that under the nepocracy. It's solely, who are your parents? Did we grow up with you? Did we know you? Did our parents host you? And all this bullshit where they say like, oh, that doesn't matter, and we had to earn it, and give me a break. Hollywood is built on connections. It's built on who knows who and do we know you and have we heard of you, and oh yeah, I had that guy at my party a couple weekends ago and I like them. Movie sets are basically just people doing work, but also there's a lot of downtime. Actors have a lot of downtime, and it's all about who do they want to hang out with? Who do they want around? Do they know them, and are they comfortable with them? Will they feel comfortable eating lunch with them, or are you just shooting the shit? There's a lot of downtime on these movie and TV show sets, and a lot of it is who do we have a familiarity with, who are we comfortable with, and the nepocracy is everywhere. I made a list of 150 actors that I know of right now who are working. These aren't dead people. These aren't people who've been out of the game and all this shit. These are working actors right now. I'm going to read it to you because I think saying that there's a lot of nepotism in Hollywood, saying that people say, yeah, maybe a little bit, blah, 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 but there's still a lot of people who don't benefit from that. Let me read you this list and then see what you think. Now, I apologize. This is going to be quite lengthy. This could take 5 to 10 minutes because it's a lot of names. Hearing this will definitively answer, is there too much nepotism in Hollywood? Ben Stiller, son of Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira. Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez, sons of Martin Sheen. Zoe Dutch, daughter of director father and actress Leah Thompson. Madeline Dutch, same thing. Billie Lord, daughter of talent agent Brian Lord and actress Carrie Fisher. Herself the daughter of Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Fisher. Jolie Fisher, Carrie Fisher's half-sister and daughter of Eddie Fisher. Sean Penn, son of director Leo Penn. Dylan Penn, Sean's daughter with Robin Wright. Hopper Penn, Sean's son with Robin Wright. And just cast in a movie with his mom solely due to nepotism, but claiming he's not a nepo-baby somehow. Robert Downey Jr., son of Robert Downey. Kiefer Sutherland, son of Donald Sutherland. Sarah Sutherland, daughter of Kiefer Sutherland. That's 3 generations of nepotism, people, in case you fell asleep. Dominica Cameron Scorsese, daughter of Martin Scorsese. Drana De Niro, stepdaughter of Robert De Niro and daughter of Diane Abbott, the actress from the 70s. Tom Holland, the Spider-Man guy, son of British comedian Dominic Holland. Nicolas Cage, nephew of Francis Ford Coppola, of course. Sophia Coppola, daughter of Francis Ford Coppola. Talia Shear, sister of Francis Ford Coppola. Roman Coppola, son of Francis Ford Coppola. Gia Coppola, granddaughter of Francis Ford Coppola. Jason Schwartzman, yet another relative of FFC, his nephew and son of Talia Shear. Sistine Stallone, daughter of Sylvester Stallone. Freddie Prinze Jr., son of Freddie Prinze. Jaden Smith, son of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. Willow Smith, daughter of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. Ashley Judd, daughter of Naomi Judd. Jake Gyllenhaal, son of a director father and producer mother. Maggie Gyllenhaal, same thing. Lenny Kravitz, son of TV producer Cy Kravitz and Jefferson's actress Roxy Roker, cousin of Al Roker. Zoe Kravitz, daughter of Lenny Kravitz and Lisa Bonet. Zoe Kazan, daughter of screenwriter parents and granddaughter of legendary director Elia Kazan. John David Washington, son of Denzel Washington. Olivia Washington, daughter of Denzel Washington. Timothy Chalamet, nephew of filmmakers. Pauline Chalamet, same, and Timothy's sister. Maya Hawke, daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. Clara McGregor, daughter of Ewan McGregor, who just co-starred in a movie with him, similar to Ethan and Maya Hawke or Sean and Dylan Penn, making father and daughter movies. Speaking of, Maud Apatow, daughter of Judd Apatow and Leslie Mann. Iris Apatow, the other daughter of Judd Apatow and Leslie Mann. Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman. Now, early on, Reitman said he was weary of people thinking he used his dad's connections. More recently, he's had several flops and has retreated to literally doing a Ghostbusters remake as though he inherited the job from his dad. O'Shea Jackson Jr., son of Ice Cube. Michael Gandolfini, son of James Gandolfini. Cooper Hoffman, son of Philip Seymour Hoffman. Dakota Johnson, daughter of Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith. Griffith is herself the daughter of actress Tippi Hedren. 3 generations of nepotism yet again. Tracy Ellis Ross, daughter of Diana Ross. Lewis Pullman, son of Bill Pullman. Bryce Dallas Howard, daughter of Ron Howard. Alice Eve, daughter of actor Trevor Eve. Jessica Capshaw, daughter of actress Kate Capshaw and stepdaughter to Steven Spielberg. Jennifer Aniston, daughter of actor John Aniston. Rooney Mara, sister of Kate Mara. Family founded the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants. Not exactly Hollywood, but it speaks to their level of connections. Beanie Feldstein, sister of Jonah Hill. Grace Gummer, daughter of Meryl Streep. Mamie Gummer, daughter of Meryl Streep. Nico Parker, daughter of Thandie Newton and director Ole Parker. Corinne Fox, daughter of Jamie Foxx. Nona Gay, daughter of Marvin Gaye. Benedict Cumberbatch, son of British actors. Salika Shalaman, daughter of director M. Night Shyamalan, who routinely features her in music, videos, and cast her in an upcoming movie, The Trap, which which you might have just seen the trailer for. Ashana Night Shyamalan, the other daughter of M. Night Shyamalan, borrowing his middle name Night and occupation, as she'll be the writer-director for The Watchers, which was produced by Daddy. Hero Fiennes Teffin, nephew to actors Ralph Fiennes and Joseph Fiennes. Breakthrough role was playing a younger version of his Uncle Ray from the Harry Potter movies. Michael Douglas, son of Kirk Douglas. Cameron Douglas, son of Michael Douglas. Jane Fonda, daughter of Henry Fonda. Troy Garrity, son of Jane Fonda. Peter Fonda, son of Henry Fonda. Bridget Fonda, daughter of Peter Fonda. So that's not just 3 generations of nepotism, but split into 2 different branches. Drew Barrymore, a long line of actors going back to the silent film era, ridiculously claims she's no different than a daughter who takes over her father's law firm, forgetting there is no LSAT and no bar exam for actors. Jamie Lee Curtis, daughter of Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis. Jeff Bridges and Bo Bridges, sons of Lloyd Bridges. Jordan Bridges, son of Bo Bridges. Rimmer Willis, daughter of Demi Moore and Bruce Willis. Lena Dunham, daughter of successful artist. Milo Gibson, son of Mel Gibson. Scott Eastwood, son of Clint Eastwood. Francesca Eastwood, daughter of Clint Eastwood. Allison Eastwood, daughter of Clint Eastwood. Juliette Lewis, daughter of Jeffrey Lewis. Kate Hudson, daughter of Goldie Hawn. Oliver Hudson, son of Goldie Hawn. Wyatt Russell, son of Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. Amy Schumer, cousin of Chuck Schumer. Malia Obama, daughter of Michelle and Barack Obama, who started a production company called Higher Ground after leaving the White House. Now Malia is ridiculously going by the name Malia Ann, as if anyone on a set she's on doesn't know who the hell she is, or like, oh, is that Malia Obama? No, Malia Ann. Michael McDowell, writer-director, son of Malcolm McDowell and Mary Steenburgen, also the husband of fellow nepo-baby Lily Collins. Speaking of, Lily Collins, daughter of Phil Collins, wife of Michael McDowell. Lily James, daughter of actress Nanette Mantell and granddaughter of actress Helen Horton. Lily Rose Depp, daughter of Johnny Depp. Armie Hammer, extremely wealthy family, including owning Armand Hammer Productions, a film and television production company. Chris Pine, son of Chips actor Robert Pine and actress Gwen Guilford. Gwyneth Paltrow, daughter of Bruce Paltrow and Blythe Danner. Catherine Monig, the L Word actress, is Gwyneth's first cousin and Blythe Danner's niece, saying she doesn't think that mattered because she looks so different from Gwyneth. Sure. Miley Cyrus, daughter of Billy Ray Cyrus. Annabelle Wallace, niece of Jared Harris. Jared Harris, son of Richard Harris. Jake Hoffman, son of Dustin Hoffman, acted together in Sam and Kate. Shyler Fisk, daughter of Sissy Spacek, also acted together in Sam and Kate. How cozy for them. Eva Green, daughter of French actress Marlene Jobert. Angelina Jolie, John Voight's daughter. Various Jolie Pitt kids have also been featured in Mom's movies. Aw, sweet. India Rose Hemsworth, Chris Hemsworth's daughter, who had a substantial role in Thor 4. Sosha Bacon, Kevin Bacon's daughter with Kira Cedric. Sosha Mamet, David Mamet's daughter with Lindsay Krause. Wes Duchovny, David Duchovny's daughter with Taya Leone. Jack Quaid, Dennis Quaid's son with Meg Ryan. Sadie Sandler, Adam Sandler's daughter, routinely featured in his movies. Camilla Moroni, daughter of Argentine actors. Her mother dated Al Pacino for so long that Camilla considers him her stepfather. I bet she does. Kate Burton, daughter of Richard Burton. Zoe Deschanel, daughter of actress Mary Jo Deschanel and multiple Oscar-nominated cinematographer Caleb Deschanel. Emily Deschanel, same thing, Zoe's sister. Alexander Skarsgård, son of Stellan Skarsgård. Bill Skarsgård, son of Stellan Skarsgård. Gustav Skarsgård, son of Stellan Skarsgård. Riley Keough, Lisa Marie Presley is her mother and Elvis Presley her grandfather. Ireland Baldwin, daughter of Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger. Hailey Bieber, daughter of Stephen Baldwin and niece of Alec, Daniel, and Billy Baldwin. Scott Conn, son of James Conn. Jake Busey, son of Gary Busey. Colin Hanks, son of Tom Hanks. Chet Hanks, son of Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. Truman Hanks, yet another son of Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, played a young Tom in A Man Called Otto. Gee, bet he auditioned really tough for that one. Lily Allen, daughter of actor Keith Allen and producer Allison Owen, and very defensive about criticisms of nepotism. Alfie Allen, Lily's brother and Keith's son, so must not have been too defensive about it. 2 kids. Elizabeth Allen, daughter of Tim Allen, starred with him on The Santa Claus Show. Yeah, I bet that was a tough audition. Damon Wayans Jr., son of Damon Wayans. Shannon Lee, daughter of Bruce Lee. J.C. Chan, son of Jackie Chan. Asia Argento, daughter of famous horror director Dario Argento. Mira Sorvino, daughter of Paul Sorvino. Jack Kilmer, son of Val Kilmer. Honor Swinton, daughter of Tilda Tilda Swinton, Kaya Gerber, Cindy Crawford's daughter, Patrick Schwarzenegger, son of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lynn and Vanessa Redgrave, daughters of Michael Redgrave and Rachel Kempson, an acting dynasty that even predates Michael since his parents were stage actors, Jolie Richardson and Natasha Richardson, daughters of Vanessa Redgrave, Michael Richardson, son of Natasha Richardson and Liam Neeson, who gave him breaks early on with Cold Pursuit, and then Made in Italy, making Michael the fifth generation of this acting dynasty. Wow. Josh Brolin, son of James Brolin, Eve Hewson, daughter of Bono, Cassie David, daughter of Larry David and Lori David, Chris Wallace, son of Mike Wallace, Elle King, a country singer who's also the daughter of Rob Schneider. About every acting she's ever had was in one of Dad's movies. Dan Levy, son of Eugene Levy, Sarah Levy, daughter of Eugene Levy, Margaret Qualley, Annie McDowell's daughter, Rainey Qualley, Andy McDowell's other daughter, Domhnall Gleeson, son of Brendan Gleeson, Damien Hurley, son of Elizabeth Hurley, Sam Navola, son of Alejandro Vanola, Rashida Jones, daughter of Quincy Jones and Peggy Lipton, Spencer Grammer, daughter of Kelsey Grammer, Nicholas Braun, son of actor Craig Braun, Jason Sudeikis, nephew of Cheers actor George Wendt. I actually didn't know that one. Una Chaplin, daughter of actress Geraldine Chaplin and granddaughter of Charlie Chaplin, and Emma Roberts, niece of Julia Roberts and daughter of Eric Roberts. This list is of over 150 actors currently working, and it's not even comprehensive, which should tell you how ridiculous the problem is. This isn't even the behind-the-scenes branch, okay? The behind-the-scenes branch is not as visible. These are just actors and then a couple of directors that just felt relevant into that. But I didn't even get into Duncan Jones, the David Bowie. There's a lot of different writers and directors, because what they always say is well, it might be a foot in the door, but if we're not any good, then eventually they're going to quit calling us. First of all, when has that shit ever actually happened? Ever. I'd like to see someone point that out to me as an example. Freddie Prinze Jr. sucks. He's one of the worst actors I've ever seen who's ever been cast, and he's worked for 20 fucking years. 30 years, really, if you go back to the 90s, which is when some of his early roles were. Nobody really loses jobs due to lack of talent, and it's adorable that people even say that. That's adorable. But even if they're so bad that the fan backlash is terrible, this happened to Sofia Coppola in The Godfather 3. They're like, this is the worst acting. It was supposed to be Winona Ryder, but she had to drop out at the last minute or something. I forgot the reason. But Francis Ford Coppola's like, oh, you know what? Let's put Sofia in this. She was so bad that people say it's one of the worst performances ever. And even when that happened, all she did was just switch over to being a writer-director. She's been a writer-director for 20 years. Lost in Translation was one of the first movies she did. Priscilla, the movie that came out last year, you think, oh, wow, she never met a privileged white woman that she didn't over-identify with. She's still working. And people who say that, oh, well, they're not going to keep calling you. They'll just switch over into being a writer or a director or a producer or something behind the scenes, a studio executive. There's all kind of people involved in film and TV. You don't even know what the hell they do. They're executive producers. The woman who's Bruce Lee's daughter, she was all over Quentin Tarantino for being like, oh, he insulted my dad's legacy and my memory. My dad was nothing like this. Her dad died when she was 4 years old. She never really met him in terms of having cognizant memories of before she was even in kindergarten of her dad. And it's ridiculous to assume she knew him better than anybody who'd ever met him or written about him. And plus, it's a hagiography. When you grow up in a famous dad's shadow who died when you were a kid, they were perfect. Oh, he was amazing. He was the best guy that ever lived. Anybody who says otherwise is just a hater or a racist. All she ever grew up was hearing was great things about him because he's dead. And everything that her mother ever had was because of her dad being this rich, famous movie star. And she's now grown up to manage his legacy. She was on the TV show Warrior, which is somehow based on an idea her dad had 50 years ago before he died. Her whole life has now been managing this legacy and getting to do behind the scenes stuff. Nepo babies are also trust fund babies because they're living off the legacy of their parents. James Gandolfini is dead, so his son Michael Gandolfini gets cast in the Sopranos prequel. And people being like, well, if he wasn't talented, he wouldn't keep... How would you even know? He was cast in 4 or 5 things before a single thing had ever come out. Even if he had sucked donkey balls, which would have been nearly impossible given the types of roles he was being given, you wouldn't have even known about it until he'd already been acting and made $2 or $3 million. It's ridiculous to be like, I'm only going to make $3 or $4 million even if I really suck because I'm only going to get a handful of breaks even if I'm really bad. These actors that I just named, out of that list of over 150 people, only Robert Downey Jr., Sean Penn, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Nicolas Cage, only those four are considered true top-tier fantastic actors, and they're not great all the time. Robert Downey Jr., if people say, oh, he could never be bad in a movie, I want to direct you to not only Dolittle, which was not a good performance, but also In Dreams. There was a movie where he played like a Scottish serial killer or something with a crazy accent. He's been very bad before. Nicolas Cage, I mean, he's great to me. I think he's a great actor. A lot of people would probably disagree with that. Sean Penn was great for the last 15 years. He's been kind of sleepwalking through different roles. So even these great actors, there's still stipulations where I don't know if you would put them in the same league as like Jamie Foxx and Meryl Streep and Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton and Michael Shannon and Willem Dafoe and Jessica Chastain and Alfre Woodard and people that you know for a fact they're going to give you something great every single time that you watch them. I don't know if you put them in that same category, and I definitely wouldn't put their kids in that same category. No matter how good Sean Penn is, when his son Hopper Penn is like, oh yeah, well, I don't know what a nepo-baby is and I didn't benefit from that. The only reason you're being cast in a movie with your mom is because of nepotism. It is fucking absurd to say that that had no role in you getting that part. And then to have somebody like Drew Barrymore be like, well, you know, it's just like inheriting the family law firm. Hollywood is so different than any other business. You may be the son of a doctor and you may want to go into medicine as your field, but you still have to go to college for years. You still have to take medical exams. You can't just say like, well, my dad is a surgeon and therefore tomorrow I will be a surgeon. I will inherit that. It is illegal for a lawyer to practice without a license. Okay, you have to pass the LSAT, go to law school, or at least pass the bar exam in states that don't require a law degree. You can't just do that because your dad did it and now you want to do it. So all this bullshit about, well, it's just the family business for creative people in Hollywood. And the reason it's such a big deal, historically, the only way for working class people or poor people to break into the upper echelons and have a good life, sports, entrepreneurship, and the arts. You know, like I said, with being a doctor, being a lawyer, it's very expensive to do these programs. You have to have backing or take on a mountain of student loan debt to get through these programs. And a lot of people can't do it. A lot of people who like to be doctors, they simply can't go through the 10 years of school that it requires to become one. And for a lot of other people, sports is a great leveler, but you have to be a certain physiological size. Like you got to be speed, you got to have demonstrable talent, or they can't just let you do it. I might want to be a professional basketball player. I can't be one. It's impossible for me to be one. But that's not true of a writer or director or an actor or something like that. So the arts is sort of the last great democratic field where people from nothing can absolutely break through and become something. And so to have it be dominated by the nepocracy and have the nepocracy put such a stranglehold on it to where you can't break through, I think is disgusting. And it really does bother me. I mean, I've spent a lot of time dwelling on this. A lot of people would love to be successful artists, and if it's all like, no, this guy I've known since high school and we've been friends, I'm going to cast this person. No, my daughter, she wants that job. People did not really audition for these jobs, by the way. Like, oh, they were the best person for it. Like in Thor 4, where Chris Hemsworth, when he wants his daughter to be in that movie, the producers are not going to tell him no. The studio executives are not going to say, no, let's do this. So what they do is they may have open auditions for it, but a lot of auditions are bullshit. They know who they're going to cast before they even have an audition. So they have an audition. They make actors waste their time and money getting to the auditions, and then they cast the daughter of somebody or the grandson of somebody or whoever they want to cast. And the problem is it's becoming increasingly hard to break through in these fields. Even within tech, it's becoming increasingly hard to break through because of the digital pyramids, where we're all at the bottom and we're just constantly funneling content up to the top. I kind of quit going on Twitter, because I realized all I was really doing was funding a guy who hates my guts. Like, I'm creating free content and putting that out there, pumping that into the air for him to sell ads. Ads go on those things for a new movie or Coca-Cola or whatever the product is. My content is the product, my free content that I generate. And I noticed that social media wasn't really driving a lot of content to alabamaliberal.com. I could write one tweet a month or 50 tweets a day. And because the algorithm shifted, because they deplatformed liberals, before Elon Musk took over on Twitter, I used to be able to get about 200 views for each tweet. And that's a wild estimate. Sometimes it was way more than that. Like if a tweet ever caught fire, it might be thousands of views, okay? But a lot of times it would be 100, 200 views, something like that. Now it's gone down to like 5 views. It's pathetic. Like I can put a tweet out there and only 5 people see it because the algorithm shifted under algorithm inequality to favor some people over others. When conservatives say something like, well, we're being screwed and we're being cheated because conservatives are being deplatformed and liberals are being platformed, I wish that shit were true. How can we make what they think is the conspiracy. How can we make that a reality? Because it's not true at all. I wish it were true. But what really happens is once you have a hit, you can become 10 times more successful. You need a hit. You can then get more views and more views and more views. For Alabama Liberals' YouTube channel, there's no traffic because I haven't had that one big hit. If I had one video that had 1 million views, every single video I would put out would be recommended to you. It's kind of a pyramid scheme in that way. Like if you're ever at the top, you can stay at the top a lot easier because you've broken through. Whereas I've released over 200 videos, and because none of them have been that popular, they don't get recommended to people. The most popular video I've ever had, it's strange because a lot of them aren't really political. Like one was about the U.S. and Canada should merge, and another one was about In-N-Out Burger sucks, and another one was about Richard Madden should be James Bond, and I think one was about Alabama football. 95% of the comments I get, they're not on anything new. They're not on anything that I've done in like the last 4 or 5 years. It's all those early videos that because they cracked the algorithm, the Canada and U.S. video merging more views than most of my other videos put together, and it's not even that much, but let's say 30,000, 40,000 views, whatever it is, because it's had a certain number of views, it's being constantly recommended to new people, whereas like these podcast videos, because not one of them has ever been successful, they don't get recommended to anybody. You have to seek them out and find them, and that's algorithm inequality, and that's controlled by the tech companies, the same people that do sort of control what people see, but not necessarily politically. People think that because a lot of the engineers at the bottom are liberal, that somehow controls the media, like a lot of journalists are liberals, but who cares when the media companies are owned by conservatives and conservative companies buy the ad space? I wondered why a lot of the stuff I talked about in 98, 99 is not being discussed on the news instead of Trump, and it's because how can you really talk about like, oh, Arby's is being dominated by Rourke Capital and they're creating a quasi-monopoly in fast food, and then you go to the ads and there's an Arby's ad, and there's a Jimmy John's ad, which is also owned by Rourke Capital. Like all these companies I was bad-mouthing in 98, they buy ad space. I'm convinced half the reason they buy ad space is just to stop the news from talking about them. Every commercial on TV is like, ask your doctor, ask your doctor. These are medicines. Like you either need them or you don't need them. Like why are they advertising? Like you either have a heart problem or you don't. Does anybody actually do this where they go into their doctor's office and say, hey, I saw a commercial for a life-saving heart medicine. You don't have that problem. I want it, goddammit. I want that medicine. Like if you watch American TV, you would think America is the sickest bunch of losers that you've ever come across because every commercial break is medicine. Here in California, it's a lot of HIV drugs. It's a lot of AIDS and HIV drugs, which there's like 4 or 5 different ones. And you think, okay, so you can have 4 or 5 different treatments for HIV, but not one cure. Like there's no vaccine for it. There's no cure for it, but you can slowly bleed people dry through these expensive medicines. They cost a lot of money. I would think you just don't have the commercials and then you pass those savings on to people so they can afford this shit in the first place. But I guess that's not how American medicine works. But here in LA, it might be like HIV drugs. In Alabama, it might be diabetes drugs. But a lot of the ads are pharmaceutical companies. People sad, they're depressed, anxiety, depression, obesity. But these medicines, you think, why do you need to buy this ad space for medicines you either need or you don't need? And couldn't you pass that savings on to people? Maybe it's just to keep reporters from talking about these companies, from ever doing an expose about them. And instead it's like, okay, go to sleep about the mega mergers. We're going to talk about Trump for 30 minutes. He's going to suck up all the oxygen in the room to where that's all we're going to talk about. And a good example of the media censoring people and tech companies censoring people, I did an episode called Episode 62. And the title of it is Forget LGBTQ, I'm Worried About FGTTQ, which is Facebook, Google, Twitter, TikTok, and Quora, social media companies. Message from Google being like, oh, this YouTube video violates our policies. And I had to look up what they were referring to. There's one sentence in that video. It's a sarcastic sentence. I'm literally quoting an idiot being like, oh, COVID's not real. And that's what they flagged. And that's why they removed that video. So they say. I appealed the decision immediately because I'm like, this is sarcasm. This is parody. I'm not actually saying COVID's not real. They flagged that video because it's criticizing Google. The Alphabet company that owns Google is being critiqued heavily in that video, and YouTube is owned by Alphabet. And that's the reason that they had a problem with this video. Not because of any sarcastic comment about COVID. Not, oh, it violates our health and wellness policies of spreading health misinformation. I wasn't doing that. If you listen to the full context of the video, I appeal it. It immediately gets rejected. Immediately, like within 30 seconds, meaning they didn't even consider it. This video had 10 views on it, and it's about 4 years old. Like it's not a new video. It's not something that just came out. And probably what happens is they go through the archives and scrub every video on there, and if anything mentions Google, find out it has a negative context, they remove that video. So they were hiding behind COVID policies, which enraged conservatives, talking about spreading misinformation. I wasn't wasn't doing that, but they hid behind that to get rid of something that makes Google or YouTube, all owned by the same company, look bad, and then remove that. And so that's a case where big tech was able to pull something, not because it had a conservative tilt to it or anything like that, but because it hurt corporate profits and made them look worse. So that algorithm inequality, they don't recommend me on YouTube, they don't recommend my tweets on Twitter, they don't put this stuff out there. And I'm not saying that it's just me, it's a lot of different people who don't get platformed, and it's not politics. There's something they don't want out there. I don't think they really give a shit between liberal or conservative, to be honest. But if you ever have one hit, then you're popular enough to generate more clicks, more likes, more subscribers, and more revenue. It really does make a difference. If I had one video that had 1 million views, all of them would be recommended, and it would be actual revenue for me. I've posted over 200 videos to YouTube, hundreds of hours of content. I have not had one fucking penny from that site. And the ads that were on alabamaliberal.com that were controlled by Google AdSense, they never generated any money. And they kept moving the goalpost, where for YouTube for a long time there was one set of rules to achieve profitability. I hit that. Oh, no, you actually have to have multiple videos, have 50,000 views or whatever it was. Like, they kept moving the goalpost to profitability. And all I'm still doing, because I'm sure I'll be an idiot and I'll make a video out of this and I'll post it to YouTube, all I'm doing is generating free content for a website where I receive no financial benefit whatsoever. The digital pyramid generate enough content so that Google AdSense, the ads on your website, can generate enough clicks that you receive profitability. It's never happened. And it's been around for 12 years, and I've had hundreds of thousands of views on alabamaliberal.com, and yet somehow no ad revenue whatsoever. For the YouTube channel, tens of thousands of views, hundreds of hours of content that people have watched, and yet I've never generated 5 fucking cents in ad revenue. That's the digital pyramid, where we're all generating content for these companies, thinking we're going to hit it rich, thinking they're going to appreciate us. All we've done is take on a job. Our free time used to be like, oh, we'll watch TV, or we'll throw the ball around, or we'll go fishing. Now it's social media, where we're generating free content for companies, thinking, man, maybe I'll go viral. Maybe I'll persuade somebody to do this or that, or put me in this thing. The Nepocracy is not going to notice it. And the tech companies keep moving the goalposts to where you can never make any real money off of it. That's algorithm inequality. That's the digital pyramid. And it's being controlled by the Nepocracy, sitting at the top, the new Pharaohs. Okay, everybody, thanks for listening. I appreciate your time. Sorry if this episode's a tad long, but episode 100 is going to come up in May. Stay tuned. I appreciate you.